happy to see. Please tap on the chat, and we like to see where you are from. Yeah, we glad there are some guys actually join today's event. There's no gender difference today, so welcome, welcome. Whoa, great. We have some people outside the Bay Area. Yes. And the people from Taiwan, Oregon, Florida. Wow, cool. Nice, nice. We have a lot of people. Actually, yeah, glad to see people actually come from outside the Bay Area. Yeah, indeed, it's a kind of global international event. Let's give it a few minutes. The people who just joined, and let's wait for a few minutes. And if you want to interact with us, please type where you are from. And on the chat, we are happy to see the people from the United States and even the outside the Bay Area. Oh, we have seen people from Seattle. Nice. Great, great. And yeah. And a lot of people from Taiwan. Actually, today it's a work day in Taiwan. I just realized. So I appreciate the people, yeah, join today's event, especially in the early morning. Okay, let's we gather enough people, and maybe we should start soon. Okay, hello everyone. So we welcome you to today's special event. And my name is Hsiang-He. I'm your host today. I'm a staff scientist at the Livermore National Laboratory. It is my honor to be your opening host. And today's event is NATEA Women's Summit 2023. This is our third year that NATEA hosting this type of the event. Okay, so before we get the details of today's event, please allow me take a few minutes to introduce myself. My background is the atmosphere science. Yes, it's about the weather and the climate. Besides the climate change and the climate impacts related topics, my research interests also included wildfire, renewable energy, and sustainability. I received my Ph.D. from the University of California, Davis. After I graduated, I worked at the MIT Overseas Research Center, called SMART, in Singapore. I worked there almost 5 years. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm a staff scientist at the Livermore National Laboratory. So if you are interested in climate and wildfire, renewable energy, and want to know more about them, please reach me out after this event. I'm happy to tell you more about it. So It's my honor to serve as the board member in NATEA this year. NATEA is a nonprofit and tax-deductible professional organization founded in 1991, Silicon Valley, California.
Recording in progress.
We proudly connect innovative leaders with the community and broaden the impact by sharing business insights and entrepreneurial experience. With the members' talent and professional expertise, NATEA can provide technical service for the Taiwanese American and the local mainstream community, starting in Silicon Valley, and later extending the major cities in the United States and Canada through the successful regional chapters. Various conferences and summit forums were co-organized in the past by local university, government office, academia, and the private sectors for science and technology information exchange among the US, Canada, and Taiwan. In recent years, more and more young talents join NATEA and help NATEA to become a vivacious organization. The members also benefit from NATEA for better career achievement and continue to work smarter and better. So welcome to join NATEA again. So we have the QR code here. So if you are interested to join NATEA, so please scan it and to register. Welcome to join us. So let's talk about our partner. So we appreciate our partner today for today's event, the Global Meet 创业小聚, and the Stanford Taiwanese Student Association, our media partners, Taiwan News. So, okay, let's back to today's event. We know the March is the National Women's History Month, but why? You know, I'm a scientist. When I see something or hear something, I always want to know why. Here's what I found. So long time ago, yes, it has been a century. It began the Earth just happening in a single day in 1908 in New York City, when thousands of women united and marched for better labor condition and the right to vote. A year later, on February 28, group gathered again in Manhattan for what they called the first International Women's Day. The idea swiftly caught on and made its way to Europe. International Women's Day was then formally honored on March 8, 1911. But the day officially was recognized by United Nations or celebrated in the United States until 1975. So later, Women's Day grew from a day to a week. Till 1987, the National Women's History Project sparked a Congress to declare the holidays in perpetuity. And just like that, a week became a whole month. So now the March is our International Women's Month. So International Women's Day 2023 campaign thing is the embrace equity. What's different? So what's the equity? What's the equality and equity? So here is a better definition. Equality means that each individual group of the people is given a same resource or opportunity. Equity is recognized that each person has different circumstances and allocated the exact resource and opportunity needed to reach the equal outcome. NATEA believes that gender should not be a constraint when it comes to achieve a personal goal. Today, more than ever, We want to empower women to be free to making their own decision. Equality is not just nice to have, it must have. We should like to support and Equal International Women's Day, the 2023 is the initiative to embrace the equity. And due to the COVID-19 and the huge layoff in Silicon Valley recently, people in the Bay Area are living with a lot of uncertainties. The campaign theme of NATEA Women's Summit 2023 is the resilience. We want to encourage the women not only embrace the equity, but also stay the resilience in both their career and their personal life. In today's event, we invited the female leaders in tech and education to share their experience and provide an example for how the women can establish their careers and in a challenging environment and embrace the opportunities to find their ways in work and their personal life. So we have 3 sessions of today's event. The keynote topics is the resilient across life, given by Professor Tianxi from Harvard Medical School, following on 2 panel discussions, resilience across the career growth and the resilience across the transition. Don't be hurried to leave after the second panel discussion. We have a small group discussion after that, and we encourage you to stay and have fun discussion with us. The Zoom link that we'll provide after the second panel. In 2021, NATEA hosted the first Women's Summit, and it was a huge success. Now it is the 3rd year NATEA hosting this type of the event. We know that the women in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are still minority. Even nowadays, the women earn 70 to 80% of men's salary on the same position. Don't even need to mention that. Our multiple roles in work and the personal life. We got a lot of great feedbacks from the audience there in the previous years. Girls got inspired from our outstanding speakers who shared their struggles and the tough decisions in their life. No success comes easily. That's why we would like to continue the Women's Summit this year and in the future. I hope that you are enjoying today's event. And let's pass the floor to our keynote moderator, Tianning. Before that, if you have the questions or want to chat with us, please note you on your room webinar should have the icons to let you chat with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Hsiang-He, for the great introduction. And it's time for move to our keynote speaker. But before that, I'm going to give you all a short introduction about me. Hello, everyone, Tianning, and I'm grade J from Stanford with master's in 2019. And currently, I'm a computer scientist at Adobe. And this year, also a NATEA board member. And I'm also a podcaster of the show Silicon Valley 101. And today, I'm really excited to be here with our keynote speaker, Tianxi Cai. And as you might already see in the agenda, that the keynote we got around 40 minutes, and Tianxi is going to give a talk around 20 minutes. And after that, we will do a 20-minute Q&A session. So very excited to hear Tianxi's resilient story and to ask some question around being a female scientist and professor. Before that, I would like to give you all a short introduction about the keynote speaker. Tianxi Cai, Doctor of Science, is the John Rock Professor of Population and Translational Data Sciences and Professor of Bioinformatics at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and Professor of Biomedical Informatics at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Tsai is a major player in developing analytical tools for mining each EHR data and predictive modeling with biomedical data. She directs the HMS and HSPH Translational Data Science Center for Learning Health Systems. Tsai's research lab develops novel statistical and machine learning methods for several areas, including clinical trials, real-world evidence, and personalized medicine using genomic and phenomic data. Tsai received her Doctor of Science in Biostatistics at Harvard and was an assistant professor at the University of Washington before returning to Harvard as a faculty member in 2002. And now Tianxi is going to give us a talk on resilience and life. Please join me to welcome Tianxi Tsai.
Thank you. It's really a great honor to be speaking here today. I didn't actually prepare a talk per se, but I really like the topic that you have chosen for this gathering. I think it's super important, both in terms of equity and also in terms of resilience. I think most of us agree that, it is hard to, I would say not only just to be successful, but really just go through any kind of life from, I have a 7-year-old and I am also a professor. And for example, almost every day, my son would ask me, do you love me more or your work more? So you can see that from every angle, we can have to think about what is the balance that we want to achieve. And throughout my own career, as Tianyi mentioned, I was at the University of Washington for 2 years, and then I moved back to Harvard. I want to start there because seemingly an easy transition, it was actually started because I went there and for some reason, when I was applying for a tenure track position and the senior faculty basically wanted to go and the position was no longer open. And when I arrived, before I accepted the position, and I remember the chair told me, oh, when position comes up, we'll give it to you. But that didn't happen. So for the younger people, don't believe things that are not written down. But anyway, when I worked there for 2 years, the senior faculty who took the job decided that she doesn't want to teach. So she gave up her spot. And she was actually my close collaborator. So she told me, oh, they should just give it to you. But apparently they didn't. They said, oh, you should apply. And things basically didn't go the way I had initially expected. So at that point, I felt really a struggle because, 2 years into my faculty career, and I already felt like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But I was extremely fortunate that I was able to get a position and move back to Boston. So I would say many points throughout my career, there are many challenging times. And I would say resilience is the one thing I felt like every one of us almost have to have. I actually listen to Hidden Brain a lot. It's a NPR talk show, and they analyze what are the different aspects that matter in various aspects of our lives. And I remember one time one of the show actually said that adversity is almost a necessity for success, like how we overcome these challenging situations and feel at peace with whatever that might happen to us. So I would say that I don't really feel that I have any secret sauce, or maybe most of us don't. But I would say the one thing I feel extremely fortunate is that I have many close friends who, for example, went to graduate school with me and end up in a very similar position as I have. So we do talk to each other, we support each other. So in a way, we complain to each other and feel comfort from each other. I also have, I actually have 5 brothers. I'm the youngest. I would say through growing up, I benefit tremendously. Having 5 brothers, I can ask them when I feel uncertain about situations. I think having a supporting environment, both within the family and having our friends, is one thing I appreciated very much. And I want to also point out that I really liked also your angle of equity. There are definitely also many times when I'm in a very challenging situation. For example, I had some challenging students or postdocs who could not make progress, and it's challenging to communicate gently but also firmly that you have to meet a certain standard. Whenever I face that situation, I wish that I was stronger. And sometimes I do wonder whether being a female faculty is an advantage or disadvantage. That's an interesting angle I'd love to talk to more later. But even though these working with the students, for example, and also any kind of training, I would say that's probably one of the aspects I enjoyed the most being a faculty. It's a very, very hard job. My students always say, I don't want your life. Although at the same time, I would say I like my life. I enjoy being with my students, my postdocs, etc., and also my family, but they can see that it's very busy life. At the same time, I think in order for us to overcome the personal challenges, I think we need to kind of step out of the situation for a moment, look at a bigger picture, like why do we choose this profession? Or I work in public health. I also do a lot of electronic health record data, basically how we can leverage this to develop better clinical decision support, etc. To me, like both the angle of public health and also the angle of being able to help someone else to achieve their goal, their dream, I think those 2 aspects are very, very meaningful to me. When you look at a bigger picture, then you think that, if one little thing like your paper got rejected or, one little bump, I feel like you probably can look at a sort of a few steps away and think that it's okay. I think once you have a particular aspect that you very much value, many things don't matter as much anymore. I think I also enjoy working with other people as a team for the work that we do because of the amount of data that we touch and the analysis and the interpretation. We really do a lot of teamwork. I also find it very rewarding, very fun to work together with a team. So when you have a team, then you think more about like overall as a team, do we gain or not? Rather than me personally, how much am I, for example, advancing? I think once you look at sort of too narrow of a scope, then it's almost like for people who work on algorithm, because I'm sure there are many scientists or engineers here, like we always say, you can't try too hard to find a local optimal, then you cannot find the global optimal. So a lot of time I would say that whenever we have these challenging situation, I think you kind of just have to take a step back, think years later, when you look at the situation again, it's really not that important. So I would say if we can really appreciate or enjoy the things that really matter to you, many of the challenges may not look as bad, or they may not matter as much. So I would say in my career, I already mentioned, I enjoy the most is actually the ability to influence others, to help them to achieve their goals. And also, I truly believe in equity. I like public health because it's helping, from the society perspective, like how can we actually help to achieve equity in health. I also truly believe in equity in education. I like your organization a lot. I hope that at some point, maybe we can even potentially collaborate. We actually started a summer camp for high school students. It's actually a free summer camp. It's called Data Science in Action. Basically teach kids about the concept of AI, machine learning, how they can potentially do different little things, do a little toy car that they can do. Part of the reason I started this is that summer camp is so expensive that many families don't even have the ability to afford sending their kids to summer camp. Me growing up in China, I felt like one thing I really appreciated is that the fundamental concept that education is sort of the way that can get us out of, whatever kind of disadvantage that we might be in. If we study really hard, if we can make it to a good college, work hard, we could potentially change our future. So from that aspect, I also truly appreciate the potential equity in the opportunity for good education. I think with these things in mind, I really enjoy my work because I feel like at this point, I can try to make these things happen in a small way. But if we all work together, like I actually have a very good friend who works at PayPal, and she's helping me to potentially expand it to Bay Area in California. And you can see that if we collectively think about different solutions and work together, we can actually make a lot more impact. You guys also asked me particularly to comment on work-life balance. So I started my conversation by saying that it's really hard. I do have a very busy life, and I have a 7-year-old. And I worked a lot during COVID. I worked a lot on COVID. We were so busy. We had worked together with 7 different countries, 300 hospitals, trying to use electronic health record to do research and to figure out, what are the basically treatment and the progression of COVID, for example. And at that point, I felt like extremely hard that I have very busy work. There's not much of a childcare because the daycare was shutting down. But at the same time, you have so much work to do. There are definitely moments I feel like it's just really hard. But at the same time, I think, family is probably one of the most important things to most of us. Whenever, you sit down and after the end of the day, I hold my son, just have a little moment of peace, I find it's all worth it. So I think having something that you truly value is probably something that can get you going. So I don't, like I said earlier, I don't really have any secret sauce, but I think all the aspects that you guys touch upon about our belief in equity and basically our sort of desire to make it better also can impact how we function and how we can actually achieve bigger goals. Along the way, we will probably also achieve our own goals. So that's all really that I want to comment specifically on about my own life story. But I think if Tianyi, you have any specific topics that you want me to chat about, I'd be happy to.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks Tianxi for sharing. It's really inspirational. And we do have some questions I want to ask. But before that, I want to also let our attendees know if they have any question they want to ask, feel free to post in the chat. And yeah, if we have time after some question we've been preparing, and maybe we can also go through the question from attendee. Yeah, okay. And the first question I have after listening to Tianxi sharing, as you mentioned a little bit about kind of like the communication. You mentioned that sometimes you're not sure it's kind of like advantage of women or it's actually disadvantage of women in this aspect. So I want to hear more on this topic. As a kind of woman, female scientist and professor, are there any obstacles you met along the way specific to gender? And or on the other side, do you have any insight on what advantage women have? Or maybe like there's any different research approaches or teaching approaches between women and men? I've been really curious about that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So give you one example. Let's say that we have, we're discussing either just research or discussing departmental issues as a faculty. I find it harder to balance because there are people who talk a lot, and if you want your voice to be heard, right? So as a woman, we tend to hold back a little bit more. We want it to be more polite in a way, just naturally. And but I found that sometimes if you don't interrupt, you can't get to talk at all. So now after all these years, I do interrupt. I want my voice to be heard. So, but of course, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be mean. But if I don't do that, a lot of time you don't even get a chance to speak. So that I find it harder. I don't think my male colleagues had that issue. I chatted with them before as friends. To them, it's very natural to just speak up. So I think from that angle, because when you often do that, people might have a perception of us being female, sort of aggressive, right? You are like interrupting people. But I would say if it's a male faculty, we at most say, oh, this person has a strong opinion. But we probably would never say, even me, myself, word them that way. So I think from that angle, I sometimes struggle a little bit. But now that I'm a lot more senior and more confident, and I know that if I don't do that, I can't get things done. So I do actually I try to find a balance. I definitely find it harder sometimes to sort of decide, should I do it? So I think we kind of worry a little bit more from that regard. But there's definitely advantage. I would say there are certain things that it just comes more naturally. to us, so if there's a conflict also, like we tend to have sort of slightly softer way to resolve the conflict. We just don't like it, right? At least I naturally don't like conflicts, but I want to solve it. So I think from that regard, and people do appreciate it. So when we have a departmental meeting, etc., I definitely can feel that our male colleagues appreciate having us around, because then we can solve the problem without really, fighting with each other. So because I think both ways, but I don't think in terms of, for example, teaching or research, I don't think we necessarily function differently. But I think in more reflected in like a sort of, policy making, or when you have to interact with other people to talk about certain, point of view, etc. So at those times, I do find it it's both an advantage and disadvantage.
I see. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And I can definitely relate. And I feel like, especially because maybe like English is not my first language. So a lot of times, like in a conversation, if like people like talking really fast and I can't like really find timing to interrupt, then the opportunity kind of to speak up is just missed. And then I will not be able to like join the conversation because the timing already passed. So yeah, I think this is a really good advice. I guess just like take some practice just to try to find the right timing and just like to get our opinions and word put into the conversation. So thanks for sharing this. And yeah, and now I want to move on to the next question I have is that I'm curious that do you see anything we need to change for this big environment, like research environment or like faculty environment, to encourage more women to study science and to be devoted to the faculty position?
I would say the biggest challenge I see is one aspect is that it takes many years, for example, to get tenured. And before you get tenured, or basically in the early career, you have to work really hard. So to a certain degree, I have been very fortunate. I went to school relatively early, so I did everything relatively fast. So by the time that I had my son, I was already basically, I don't have to worry about a lot of things already. I do have former mentees who are junior faculty and are debating whether they want kids yet at that moment. I would say that is something that really hurts me. Like, it makes me feel very sad that she has to make that decision. She has to still thinking about it. So I would say that is really hard. The one thing I heard from, there's the CEO of C-Trip. She came to Harvard to give a talk, a presentation. She actually offered all her female employees to cover their cost of freezing their eggs, for example. It's amazing. I actually, because that is something I would say I regret it. I didn't think about it when I was younger. But this is the one thing that, unfortunately, if we want to be a mother, that is a struggle being a scientist. And not only that, that is like, before you decide to have a baby, of course, many of us do decide to have a baby. Then there's childcare. And last week, we were deciding if we want to move our seminar time from, usually it's 4 to 5, and then I told them, including myself, I cannot go because I have to pick up my son. And I asked them if you can move it to earlier time. There are a few people like me. There was a person who actually totally did not even, it doesn't even register in his head. That's an issue. And he still just keep arguing that we should keep 4 to 5. What's a big deal? And that made me really upset. Like, it is a big deal. Of course, many daddies do that too. But I feel like, but most of the time, right? It's a lot of time it's on the mommy side. So I would say from that angle, I wish the society, especially in the US, is really bad. Childcare is very expensive and there's not much support. Like, I don't have, like family member living with me or, taking care. So from that angle, I think many of my female trainees, they kind of, it's a just constant struggle. They have kids already, they struggle because they don't have enough childcare. And they don't have kids, they keep thinking that they should delay having kids. That's something I wish that there's more change, there's more support. There's not a default, mode that, it's mommy's work. But I would say that would take even longer to change. But I wish that somehow there's definitely changing. Like the university, for example, provide more support to junior faculty to do this. But still, even for me to find someone to do this is hard.
I see. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. This is, I feel like it's definitely a scenario that a lot of us will be have to dealing with this, maybe or already been dealing with this. Do you have any advice if we encounter this situation, and how can we bring up our needs, like both polite way, but then also can invoke some changes in this environment? Is there any good like practice or anything we should kind of make our statement strong, but also it's like easy for other people to accept?
Yeah, I think we just first need to speak up in a nice way. I don't want to complain about it, but I would say most of the time, people don't even realize it because they are not in this situation. So usually we kind of just gently, raise their awareness for other people. Most of the time, I find people extremely nice and supportive. So when you raise this situation and realize it, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that, we change it. So a lot of time, again, like if you keep holding back, right? Not people may want to help it, they just don't know that you need help. So I would say a lot of times that's important for other people to know first. But sometimes, like I mentioned, right, this person doesn't register, then I will be louder. I would make it, more heard. And then if it still doesn't work, then I'll think about, but sometimes it's not something you can just complain and get it fixed, right? I would say some issues like, lack of childcare support, for example, that is not something like we can just speak and then something change. That's a gradual change, right? If there's like more and more awareness now, I would say even during the past 10 or 15 years, during I'm at Harvard, this period, there has been a lot of change. There has been a lot of support, particularly given to like a junior faculty to help them to have more support during this stage. So I do think gradually people are being more aware, but I think, organizations like yours can help people to sort of bring more awareness to it, right? To realize, I still think that most people in sort of this society, in the environment that we are, they do care. It's just that we need them to be aware. that this is a situation that really limits our ability to grow better.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, great suggestion. It's like good to hear organization like making changes, and we just have to keep like speaking up and let everyone bring up their awareness and just kind of have some patience as well to see the change that's starting and continue to happen. And yeah, and now we move to our next question. Is do you have any advice to other women attending this event? Any suggestion on how they should kind of keep hanging there, pursuing their dreams, especially what mindset to have if they encounter any unfair treatment in the way they are kind of like pursuing their dreams?
Yeah, that's a very good question, very tough question, right? It depends on what kind of unfair treatment. I would say you kind of have to look at the problem into both ways. So sometimes, I'll give you one example. When I was sort of relatively junior, we wrote a paper with a senior faculty, and I did all the work, and she kind of hinted that she wanted to be the first author. It bothered me. I talked to my brother, who's also a faculty, and he said something to me. He said, you kind of have to assess the situation in step away a little bit and think about it. One, maybe she did have the original idea, you did all the work, so it's she's very nice to me, by the way. It's not like she's just stepping on me. So there are like that kind of situation. It's harder, right? I kind of don't want to burn the bridge. So his advice to me was that, if you value your relationship, you trust her best intention, then even if this one paper is not the best situation, it's okay. Don't worry too much about it, because having a friend, having someone that works together with you and really helps you is important. So I listened to advice, and which was great. So that's a situation that basically it's sort of a touchy situation, but you trust that person's best intention, which I really liked her. So throughout my career, she also helped me tremendously. But there's another situation where it's really unfair, right? Whoever that did this was just wrong. I typically, my own person, I would never step on anybody, but I also would not let someone really just step on me. So I do not like that. I do have the personality that I will find, I will find first a gentle way to find someone who's more senior and first get his or her advice. Here's the situation. I think it's bad. I had 2 senior mentors that have been extremely kind to me over my entire career. So I usually go to them, say, this is what happened. What should I do? Because they are much older, they are much more senior. So usually they gave me some kind of advice. If they also think it's bad, then usually either they will help me to fix the problem, or they will suggest to how to bring it up. So I usually don't try to just like, oh, this is terrible, that doesn't really solve the problem. I kind of needed someone who gives me more objective assessment of the situation first, and then think about it. What is a constructive way to fix it? And sometimes there are situations that bothers me and I cannot do anything. Usually I put it away in the back of my brain. I don't think about it anymore, because otherwise I think I'm too stressful. But I think having a more senior mentor or senior person who you trust, who can give you a more objective assessment of the situation is definitely super helpful.
That's good advice. Yeah, really learned a lot from this. And moving to a question from the attendee, we have a question from Karen, and she asked, at what point do we say enough to systemic harm and come together to reshape the status quo? Or do we keep bending over backwards to appease system not designed for women and people of color?
Yeah, that I definitely think there's a lot of system issues that ideally, if they can be fixed, but most of the time these systematic issues are much harder to fix from a single person. So that's why I think as an organization or as many organizations, when we do it collectively, we can gradually change. I really don't think anything can happen within a day or very quickly, right? It takes a lot of effort to bring awareness, to think about that those kind of issues or like needs a lot more strategic planning, right? You basically need a lot of leaders who believe in this particular vision that we have to fix this system and to think about what actions can we gradually take to fix the system. I do think that over the past few years, particularly, there has been a lot of at least sort of voice to be heard, like people are speaking out more in terms of the basically I think many people are working on this problem of making everybody aware of the situation. But I would say I don't think we necessarily want to always bend backwards. Like I said, me, at least personality-wise, I don't like that. Unless I think it's not a big issue. I don't mind letting other people have their way if it's a little issue. But if it's a big issue, I don't think I like to bend backwards. But I also think that we still have to be more constructive. Just saying that it's a problem doesn't, like I actually work with, we work on a consortium to address like health disparity and also disparity in like, producing researchers. It's, I would say it's a system issue that takes many, many years and a lot of effort to fix. But again, I think that's why we have this forum, right? We have this kind of activities that we want to gradually move towards that direction.
Yeah, sounds good. It sounds like we have to like set the boundary. Also, like 3 different parts, like set boundary, also bring up awareness, and then just like if we have the constructive feedback and the fix we can provide, that will be also a good way to help change the big environment, the system as well. So thanks, Tianxi, for sharing. And one last question we have from the Q&A pod is that I know, Tianxi, you have already touched a little bit about balance, work-life balance. And this question is more specific to balance career and yourself and family in each different stage of life.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's the question is, any suggestion for balancing career, yourself, family in each different stage of life?
I'm still trying to figure out. Yeah, I don't think I have a very good answer to that. But I think because it's really different for each one of us, I think you can kind of have to listen to your own heart, what really matters to you. And I actually did yell at my son 2 days ago because I was trying to teach him something and he wasn't paying attention. And I was really tired that day. I had a lot of work, and it's just me losing the temperament first, and then he lost temperament, and I scolded him. And that day I felt, I really think, oh, it's so hard to raise a child. Why did I do that? I literally thought about that. But then, a day later, I thought a lot more about it. And then I realized it's really me started this because I was just really too tired. And I was trying to squeeze out some time so that I can work with him on something. I did apologize to him. I said, I'm so sorry, Mom, I'm just really tired. And he told me that I should not yell at him when I try to say something. So you can see it's a day-to-day, I have this struggle as well. But I would say, I realize it's my problem also because I really love my son. I really enjoy spending the time. And when I felt that I made him feel really sad, then it makes me feel terrible. I feel like that is something I should think twice, right? How much I put my energy into my work, like how much I should actually save some peaceful sort of time that I can actually be very gentle and very patient with him. So it's definitely me not being able to achieve that balance, at least not that day. So I would say I don't really have a good suggestion, but I would say you kind of you will figure it out. When you see things are not working, I suggest you take a step back. At least I thought about it. I was like, that was bad. So I think it's not easy. I don't think I can say I can easily achieve that. Maybe people from outside look at me and say, oh, you have everything. No, it's really hard. Every day I find it really hard. But at the same time, of course, most of the things are enjoyable to us, right? You enjoy research, I enjoy talking to students, my son. So I don't think I have complaints, but I wouldn't say that it's an easy job.
I see. Yeah, thanks, Tianxi, for sharing. It sounds like even like spend time with children, sometimes not just the time, but also kind of like have to leave some time to rest a little bit. So then when we are really spending time with them, we are actually presenting like the best of ourselves. It's not just the time, but also be really mentally ready to spend the time with them. So this is a really great insight. And also we are almost time. So I really want to thank Tianxi again for your talk at first, and also very insightful answer to all the questions we are very curious about. And before we let you go, we want to have a little small break here that we're going to take a group picture together with all the panelists and moderators. They are online right now. So can we have the moderators and panelists when they are ready and open the camera and we want to take a picture together? Okay, awesome.
Okay, great. And okay, anyone can help to give a screenshot? Let's see. Let me do it. I have a technical issue. Give me a second. Okay.
Do we want to take a picture with the International Women's Day this year, the post?
Yes.
Yeah. That sounds
Actually,
great.
so we have the the poster. Embrace
equity. Yeah.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Let me do it again. Sorry.
Do we do that?
Yeah.
And so anyone can help me to get the screenshots?
Okay. I think Jimmy said he got the picture.
Okay. Great.
Okay, sounds good. All right. And yeah, that I know it's all virtual, so we cannot like give a round of applause to Tianxi together, but I really appreciate you spend time, have the great talk today, and also like answering all the questions. I personally learned a lot. So really thank you so much. Yeah. And
Thank you, Tianxi. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, and for all the attendees, just a quick reminder, if you would like to discuss all the things we learned from the talk, we have the breakout room after the 2 panels, so we can chat more there about the things we learned. Yeah, and now it's time to move on to our first panel discussion, and I'm going to hand it over to the panel moderator, Yiting. Yiting, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Tianning. And hi, everyone. My name is Yiting Wu, and I'm currently a master's student at Stanford University. My major is electrical engineering, and I'm very honored to be the moderator of our first panel discussion today. So for the first panel, we're going to focus on resilience in career growth. When we talk about career growth, we sometimes associate it with the ceiling that we could encounter in the workplace. And today, we are very honored to have invited 2 outstanding women in the tech industry to chat with us about how they encounter these challenges and how they ultimately overcome the challenges throughout their career growth. So without further ado, let me introduce our 2 speakers today. We have Yanjun YJ Chen with us. YJ is an engineering manager at Reddit, and she has experience in software engineering in a wide breadth of technologies. She also got her Ph.D. from Cornell University. We also have Jasmine with us today. So Jasmine is currently the product manager at Airbnb, and she has experiences as product managers in many enterprise SaaS industry. Also, Jasmine was the creator of West Coast Plus Plus YouTube channel, and she acquired her Bachelor of Arts from Stanford and MBA from MIT. So welcome, Jasmine and YJ. Would you 2 like to talk about yourselves a little bit more?
YJ, you can start.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Jasmine. Hi, yeah, I'm YJ Yanjun. And I actually have a PhD in physics from Cornell University. I went to undergrad at National Taiwan University way back when, came here. Near the end of my PhD program, I decided academia is not for me. So I wanted to find a job in industry, and software seemed pretty natural because I always liked coding for my physics research. So I landed in this industry and went from being a software engineer to being someone more senior to being a tech lead to today having been an engineering manager for roughly 3 years. And at Reddit, I've worked for a startup before Reddit. I've worked for a larger company, Bloomberg, for a number of years as well before that. So that sort of sums up my experiences. I'm happy to share them with you today. Over to you, Jasmine.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Jasmine, and I'm also a board member in NATEA. If you were at the Women's Summit last year, you might have remembered me as one of the moderator for a panel. So very happy to be participating this year in a slightly different way. Thank you for giving the introduction, Yiting. And as mentioned, I am currently a product manager at Airbnb, focusing on safety as well as trust. One of the hardest problems to solve when you're in the shared economy. But I didn't start my career as a product manager, although I've spent many years as a product manager. After I graduated from Stanford, I actually started at a startup in more of an ops role, where I worked really closely with customers. So that experience was really valuable, especially, working in a scrappy startup. You kind of have to just do everything. And I was so fresh out of college and really, very fresh also in the United States, where I started my career. So I did that for a few years, actually, and to a point where the startup actually went public. So that in itself was a pretty cool experience. And then I went to business school and wanted to make the transition over to product management, where I've learned, I've failed, and would love to share some stories there as well.
Cool. So welcome to the summit. And so let's just dive right into our topic today. So for both of you, you have been in the industry for a fair amount of time now. Like Jasmine, you have experienced startups and now at bigger companies. And YJ also started out and now is holding the manager role. So I'm curious that for you both, along the way to the positions that you are in right now, what ceilings or what other challenges have you encountered and how do you deal with it? Jasmine, do you want to share first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I remember that in our kind of little meetup before this, I joked that, okay, I feel like I'm still very far away from the ceiling. But kind of jokes aside, I think that you encounter challenges regardless of what gender you are. And while I think a lot of the folks that I know, and I'm sure a lot of the attendees, especially who are waking up so early in the morning in Taiwan, you're driving yourself very hard and you want to achieve really great things. But sometimes, you just have a feeling that, look, what I'm experiencing in this organization, I don't know if it's related to gender, but I don't feel like I'm being treated in a very equitable way. And I don't see myself thriving in the environment. So I've had an experience like that when I was earlier in my career. I was actually doing an internship in the consulting industry. And one of the more senior partner actually had one of his teammates came over and he said that he wanted to share a piece of feedback with me. And then I thought, all right, I'll hear it. I mean, if I can improve, certainly. And the feedback that was given was that from partner B about partner A was that I was being very casual with partner A. And I asked him, okay, that's interesting. Can you give me an example? And the example was that in an environment where there's actually no clients, I kind of addressed them with what's up. Okay. So, certainly I didn't think it was a problem, but I understand people can take it kind of differently. But I also noticed that some of my male colleagues were also, in my mind, being fairly casual with him, addressing him as bro. And so I thought that, I have a suspicion, maybe it's really a gender, but regardless or not, this is just not a culture where I can see myself thriving. So I think I was really fortunate blessed with choice, where even though I got an offer from this job that I actually declined it and move over to basically chose a company where I feel like I can thrive myself. So I think it's situations like this where you could decide that, do you think there's something systematically wrong in a culture where you don't see yourself thriving, or do you think that it's within your motivation and your ability to change, and then you could change it? So all I wanted to say is that you do have a choice.
Yeah, that's very fair. I feel like a lot of times when we feel like hitting the ceiling, or not a ceiling, but just any challenges in general, a lot of times it's like the environment does not really appreciate our values to the fullest. I think that's a lot of the case. And I wonder also if YJ has similar experiences that you could share with us.
So there's two different approaches you can take to like hitting like sort of like a ceiling, or what you feel like is like a rut or a blocker to your progress or where you want to be. And so if you don't mind, I'll give two examples in which like you can change yourself or you can change your environment. Like Jasmine, I think, chose to change her environment. What I'll give the first example, change yourself. When I first joined the software industry, I was new to it. I was learning. I was a little bit pigeonholed by my manager into being a front-end engineer, and I didn't really want to be, but I somehow couldn't persuade him otherwise that I had other skills. And I think that might have been a little bit gendered, but because it's common to gender female engineers in that role. And I was really interested in the backend stuff, but we were a full stack team. There were a lot of other I was the most junior member. And then at some point, I think I'm rebellious in nature. And this was not intentional on my part, but it worked out well in that I was like, I'm interested in this task that the senior engineer is not doing. They're dragging their feet on. So I just took it and I did it. And thankfully, that did not backfire on me. My manager was super impressed. And I think it sort of got him to start seeing me in a different light. And so I think that's a good strategy, is like, just prove you can do what you want to do when you can, like if it allows. A few years later, I was thinking about the managerial track and I wanted to be a manager. I was basically running my little small team, group mates, like my manager leaned heavily on me to run that. So I thought I proved that I can do it. But there were no opportunities in sight. And then when there were some leadership changes, they kept being like, maybe later, wouldn't give me a timeline. So after 3 or 4 months of having these conversations in which I didn't feel like they were giving me clear expectations, I started interviewing elsewhere and I found an opportunity at a startup. It was not a managerial role, but I was like, hey, it's a startup, fresh start. It might grow. And sure enough, within half a year of joining a startup, I was asked to lead a team, and I got on the manager track. It helped me land my later job at Reddit. So like all those experiences added up. And so like that's a case in which I changed my environment because I knew that maybe staying put was not the option that would lead to the result I wanted. So that is 2 of the experiences that I had to share.
That's really great. And just to follow up on that, you mentioned in the first case where you sort of like change yourself, and also in Jasmine's case where you change yourselves. I feel like as the women, this also resonates a little bit with what the keynote speaker Tianxi mentioned. Like when I see in myself and a lot of other women, we tend to be like more humble in a way, and sometimes we're like more polite as to in the workplace. So, and I know that there are a lot of characteristics that women are like, there are a lot of aspects that we can perform really well. But how do we make our values visible, yet not like so strong as to like kind of be viewed as offensive, or, you know, as a woman, sometimes people would feel like, oh, why are you being so aggressive? So how do you balance this out?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I'll share a few thoughts. I think I've heard that when a man is, you know, a man is called assertive, a woman is aggressive. A guy is kind of a leadership material, and women is like very bossy. And so, I mean, I think gender stereotype does exist, and oftentimes they're a little bit more negative towards women. I tend not to think that, you know, we are so different by nature, and there are things that, you know, we're really very much better at or very much worked at. I feel like that's a little bit, it actually just reminds me of this like commercial in the 50s where you say, oh, women are really good with assembling little things because of finger dexterity, you know, like ways to say that, okay, maybe as a woman, you should settle in more menial jobs. But something I will say is that because the stereotype does exist and oftentimes put us in a disadvantage, and that we're oftentimes in the tech industry, especially as you go up, we are the minority. So that in itself is more challenging when you're someone who is both a person of color and a gender of minority. You're just a little bit different, and you can talk a little bit different. There's a lot that you could say about addressing that, but I think that when you have the chance of being in that room, sitting at that table, think about, you know, how can you bring more people like you to be in that same room so that we are not so much of the minority. I think just by being there, you're already kind of combating that stereotype. I'm curious to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah, so yeah, there definitely are some stereotypes that people will buy into that may affect you. I've actually gotten feedback that I talk too much or I'm too aggressive. And I tend to be pretty assertive. I don't actually hesitate interrupting people, unlike Dr. Tsai, who just spoke. And I'm also not the warm and fuzzy manager type person, actually. So I don't fit into what people expect of women. But when I get those criticisms or like, I'm not seen as a visionary, I'm seen as an executor, I think I try to take a step back and think of like, what is the outcome I want out of my interaction with these people who might put me in a box, and see how I can, sort of convince them otherwise. So like sort of get out of the victim mindset of being like having this be your limiting factor, and then sort of like see what's the pragmatic approach to it. I think one thing we can do as individuals as well is to, be advocates for our peers in the industry, to point out their strengths, what they bring to the table as individuals, and be loud for them, be an advocate for them, and also to check our own biases, because I think biases, against women also come from women, and we have to be aware. And I check that for myself too from time to time, like be aware like what we're thinking. So for example, for the longest time when people said tech lead, the image that popped into my mind, and I must admit, would be a male engineer. And I admit it, like I had to admit that to myself, like once I realized it, to like try to correct that. And then try to also like weigh people's opinions, regardless of their gender, like sort of on the same footing, instead of with those types of concepts in mind.
Yeah, I love that so much. I just wanted to like echo that point of checking biases, both for ourselves and for others. Like, I think when I got that feedback that you were too casual, rather than just taking on this and saying that, oh, there must be something wrong with me, I feel it's always good to ask for examples, because sometimes people might not think actively that they're looking at you through a somehow colored lens, but once they kind of are able to share an example and kind of talk out loud, it gives anyone an opportunity to check, oh, maybe this is actually not reasonable. Maybe have I fallen into some kind of bias?
Yeah, I think those are all really good points to like, sometimes it's important to check biases with others, but also within ourselves. And also like, I feel like what we've been talking about surrounds how do we make our values seen, right? But like, as you both are more of like a senior member, I'm also curious, like when you lead a team and the team is mostly male dominant, does that change your approach to leading? Or like, yeah, just as a female leader, how do you interact with a team of a lot of men in the workplace?
That's a good question. I think there is, it's really nice to be in a position where you can influence others and coach others, but there is a lot of hard work, I think, to earn their respect. And it may be slightly harder when you're a female minority in this industry. But once you do, then that's very powerful in terms of being able to, I think, work well with like your team, and then it's sort of also like, because I think we all have to earn each other's respect in some way. So like, it's sort of like, it's a precious thing where like, and you think about like, I don't know how to phrase this. It's more of like, it's a mutual thing too. So I guess some of what I've seen is actually works is to let go of my own ego, and to be open and to ask questions and to synthesize information. And then that actually really helps people understand where you're at and understand, and then like admire you for being able to do that. but yeah, so but in terms of like the makeup of the team, I do try to think about each team member as individuals who have their strengths and weaknesses. And again, like when I'm thinking about it, check their bias, check my own biases. And then, and I will admit though, because women are underrepresented in this industry, I do go a little bit of an extra mile to make sure women team members I work with have opportunities, and also like when we're hiring to make sure like there's more balance in terms of like the candidates we screen and interview.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, I think that I also work with a lot of engineers, male engineers, unfortunately, and a lot of them are in the machine learning kind of space, which in itself is very challenging because I did not come from a technical background. And I think that if that were to be coupled with the biases that, oh, women are, I think YJ mentioned something like, oh, you're not as visionary, you're like an executor, you're more process driven, are you, technically savvy? I think that in itself can be very intimidating for yourself as the newcomer into the team. And I actually switched roles after I came back from maternity leave into a more kind of ML heavy space. So I think it's more that the space in itself is challenging, coupled with, okay, there's maybe a little bit of a gender kind of imbalance. But ultimately, I feel that the goal is not necessarily that I'm trying to dominate someone or someone else is trying to dominate me, but more around that we're working together as a team. And as a product manager, I am someone who is facilitating these things and the coordinator. Something that I did, and I agree with what YJ said, it requires a lot of work. I did a lot of legwork and meeting with every individual person. And even as I'm trying to propose something to the team, I actually propose to every individual person first and have a one-on-one, so that when you're trying to seek for alignment, really, everybody is aligned. It's very time consuming, but I think it's important to come and show to your individual teammate to say that I understand your motivation and I am here to listen to your motivation, your goals. I'm not trying to work against you. I think once you have that, and that's how mutual respect and mutual alignments are built.
I really like the point that Jasmine pointed out about, creating that mutual common ground first, to know that we're on the same team. And this is like regardless of all gender, right? Like it's just with everyone. And also, I think both of the speakers pointed out just how challenging and competitive it could be in the tech industry. And I feel like the ability to, after receiving a lot of negative feedbacks, to how you put in the extra work to earn respect from people, that really links back to the topic, which is like resilience. So to me, that sounds a lot like, well, you guys are definitely very resilient, but I would also want to know, like, what do you think resilience means to you? YJ, do you want to go first this time?
Sure. So I think there's two aspects that I've settled on lately that I think resilience means to me, is to have sort of the humility and confidence to be able to learn from your mistakes, learn from your setbacks, and grow from that, I guess. So that's part of resilience. And then the other facet of it is, I think, the emotional maturity to take those things in stride, or take challenging situations, bad news, rough days, and not let that sort of affect how you value yourself, and also how you think about your forward motion in your career. So yeah, I think that's how I would frame resilience for me.
And I agree 100% with both. I think just one thing I would add is that have the courage and the kind of the emotional stability to continue to show up for others. I think engineering manager, like your team is dependent on you. And as a product manager, the product team is dependent on me. We have family members who are older or really, really young, your partner, they're all dependent on us. I'm not saying they can't even take a minute to like absorb when something bad happens, but if the next day you could acknowledge that, yeah, I'm a little upset by something, but I have the courage to say that I can continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just echo with what Jasmine just pointed out. I feel like, and also what YJ said about receiving that bad news, the ability to just bounce back and react to it. And I feel like we're talking about career growth, but career is just one part of our life. And as women, we often, like, not only as women, but everyone in general takes on many roles at the same time. And for women, one big transition in their lives could be that someone would decide to go into motherhood. And so how do you think these transitions in different life stages, not, for example, into motherhood or just getting married or other stages in our lives, change your perspectives on career growth in general, and also how you view resilience?
I can take that. I'm a new mom. My son is 10 months old right now. But I will say that even before that, I think there was the balancing act that's needed. So, so my husband, for example, he is currently in residency, and we met in the Bay Area. We used to live in the Bay Area. Lots of tech job are in the Bay Area. My friends in the Bay Area. I love the Bay Area. Right now we're in San Diego because he matched his residency over in San Diego. San Diego is a great place. However, it's not where I had the connections. And I will say, especially before the pandemic, that the tech job, it's like if Bay Area is 100, San Diego is like maybe like 1. But if we didn't move here, then he had no means to continue his pursuit in his career. There's just no possibility. So I think when you're commit to a relationship, what I had realized in the process is that you start to learn to optimize for the couple, the family, rather than just doing the optimization for yourself. And coming with that realization is also learning that I have to be at peace with it. I can't just bring it up every time if I have an argument and say, oh, I'm moving back to the Bay Area. I'm only here because of you. I miss my friends, then what's the point if you're not making the trade-off willingly? So yeah, I think that in our lives that at some point, we may choose to enter into a relationship where you're not the sole player and you're not the outcome is not to optimize self. And we just we have to decide that that's our goal, and we have to be at peace with it and be happy about it.
Yeah. Does YJ also have like similar experiences? Or
Yeah, so I don't have a spouse, nor do I have children. So even optimizing for self, but I am experiencing like parents getting older and feeling the guilt of being far away from them. And wondering like, when is it time that I need to provide more support or more help in their lives? So that is something on my mind, as my job is very busy right now too. Like that is something on my mind that, hey, maybe at some point I'll have to make a trade-off. But even in the like single, carefree, self-focused life, it's a prioritization exercise about what's important to you, right? Because during the pandemic, I think I made the mistake of like just working 12, 14 hours days because there's nothing else to do. And that was not a good pattern. It was very unhealthy. I think I was on the verge of what people call burnout. But thankfully, I recognized that, hey, like, this is not how I want my life to be structured, even when there's not a lot of social things going on outside. There can be other things I explore in this world, in this life. Life is short. Is this the right priority for me? And so like I sort of reevaluated my weighting and like how I spend my time. And that was good.
Yeah. And just interesting about the prioritizing. So just maybe for YJ and also for Jasmine, just on your career growth, what was some goals that you seemed really important when you earlier enter the career stage, and as you grow in your career, you found that, oh, actually this is not as important as I thought it would be? And how does your optimal goals change along with your career growth?
It's a great question. I want to say like money's in a snarky way, but that's not it. I wish the money is no longer important. But what I want to say is that I think when I was younger, so my parents are business people, and how like those who started their own company, they're always in the front line. They're very glamorous. And when I was at the beginning of my career, all the way to business school, that's something I wanted to do. That's why I work at a startup. I wanted to at some point start my own business. I tried out some ideas when I was in business school, but it's just, the idea was there's not enough ideas, there's not enough support, there's not enough anything. So I think recently, and I do this exercise from time to time, and it's just planning out your life for the next 5 years, just so that you help re-anchor yourself and you don't kind of wake up and thinking, what am I doing? And I'm like, every day you're a little bit older. And I'm starting to feel that, I really like where I'm working. I like the problem that I'm solving. And I think that if I spend the rest of my career in the corporate world where I take on more interesting problems and have bigger scope and are influencing others, that would be okay. So I think maybe focusing a bit more on the actual impact in itself over the glamorous title of, oh, this is my business.
I guess just reflecting on where I was when I first started my career, being sort of in school for a lot of my life and also being good at school. There's a lot of like in school, there's like a very predictable routine of you getting accolades, right? Of like, this is your grade. You did a good job, like every end of semester. And then later, even in a PhD program, you don't have that, but you still have like, oh, I published this paper. I finished this research thing. My advisor said, good job. And so you rely a little bit on these external cues of like, hey, this is how I define my self-worth. And I think once you start your career, that's a little less predictable. And it's also not necessarily aligns with like what you value. So what your manager or whoever's evaluating you or what your company needs may not always align with what you value. So you have to sort of do the hard work of figuring out what you value. And I think Jasmine figured it out later. And I think mine is similar to Jasmine, where like I think solving interesting problems and working with really great people makes my day-to-day really great. And so I love my job because of it. I do have the like grandiose, laughable ambition of wanting to make a positive impact on the world. When I was younger, it was, I wanted to like be like a superhero, but like in the sense of like solve this like huge scientific problem that advanced mankind, or humankind. But now I think it's more about, I think, we can all make impacts in the ways we can to our community, within our jobs. And I view it as like, sort of like, I'm also doing a skills building exercise within my current career, so that when that like opportunity to make a bigger impact comes, then I'm ready, then I can do a great job at it because I've learned all these things along the way. And so, yeah, I guess that's how sort of my mentality towards like what I do for a living has evolved.
Yeah, that's really great. I think that's also what makes both of you really like inspiring, because of thinking about what impact you can make And also, I really like what YJ said about working with good people around us and just the influence that the community can bring to us. So like, as a quick summary and wrapped up, like we talked about some of the challenges that as women we could face, and you guys both shared really great stories about how you sort of overcome these challenges, how do you change yourself and change the environment, and how you build up the resilience. And at the last part, as you guys mentioned community, I'm like curious about, well, I know both Jasmine and YJ are really supportive for like women in STEM in general. And as a more senior member in the industry, how would you suggest that we can create an environment that continues the support for female, does not have to be engineers, but just female in the tech industry? And also, what are some words that you would offer for younger women like myself who are just starting the career?
So I think one thing that I've realized is we women can't do it by ourselves. I think having allies in the industry who are male, who are, you know, who enjoy sort of being the like majority or the dominant group, who believe in gender equality and who believe in supporting their fellow humans, chip in is very important. So like developing those relationships and like sort of like having people help. Like when I ran a women's ERG at one of my jobs, and our male allies cohort became quite good at like sort of propagating some ways to like avoid bias and whatnot, and like do it outreach in a different way. Otherwise it was women running women's mentoring circles and like just talking to ourselves. And so I would say like, don't be afraid to like ask for help outside of the women's space, and then lean on other people too. That would be what I would say we should do more of, and I would love to see more of. And then advice wise, I guess, is, you know, find something that makes you happy, that you can shine at and do your best at. And that's pretty good. So I know it's easier said than done, but that would be, I think, what I think people should follow.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I remember when I was switching to my current job, I basically just, because sometimes I get questions of how do you find your passion, or how do you know what companies to apply for? I just like open on my phone and I say, what are the apps that I really love using? Okay, I'm just going to go for those. And I apply to 2 or 3 companies. But I think your passion comes through when you're doing things that you love. I absolutely agree that we need to find allies. Otherwise, yes, women talking to ourselves about the mission. I do also think that if you can, around you, find a circle of people that you could candidly share the challenge that you're encountering. They could be your really good friends. They could be maybe from grad school. Like I have a group of people like that I kind of lean on from business school, and we're open in talking about everything like salary, and give advice on how you should negotiate. And sometimes like talking about money and talking about packages feels really sensitive, but when an employee are kind of blind to such information, then it gives the employer more option. So if you could somehow create a circle like that, I think it's helpful in advancing in your career and knowing that what options you have. And I think a circle like that, you could also talk about like, I'm encountering this problem. Am I crazy to think that this might be related to some kind of bias? As a men, do you experience something like that? It takes a village.
Yeah, I think those are really, really great advices. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for the panel. But great discussion here. And it was such a great pleasure to chat with both of you. And later we have the breakout room. So also feel free to like sharing in a breakout room and like discuss more with our attendees here. So I'd like to welcome everyone that we're all online to give another hand to YJ and Jasmine for the sharing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and now we're going to tune into our second panel discussion. Our second panel discussion will be in Mandarin, and it will be on resilience in transition. And I will head it over to Zhiling. Thank you.
Hello, 大家好. So thank you for the amazing talk and the sharings in the keynote and panels. And the next panel will be focused on resilience and transition, and it will be held in Mandarin Chinese. 接下来的 panel 我们会用中文进行。然后我是今天的主持人芝玲或者 Nicole。我目前是在 Stanford 读机械工程的硕士，然后我是主要研究机电整合跟产品设计工程。那我过去有机会在 McKinsey、Acer 跟 Tesla 有工作和实习的经验，然后现在在 Stanford 的台湾学生会担任副会长。然后就说实话，其实今天的主题我自己也非常有兴趣。我们很荣幸能够邀请到两位非常优秀的讲者 Nicole 跟 Catherine 来和我们分享他们过去在转职的经验，以及在人生不同阶段有如何的收获以及成长。那这次的 panel 我们也会带到在矽谷财运潮下，大家如何在困境走出逆境，然后如何找到自己的优势，开启另一扇窗。那我们欢迎两位讲者来进行自我介绍。那我会先进行简短的自我介绍，再让两位讲者进行比较深入的介绍。那首先我们可以欢迎身兼多职的创业家跟 podcaster， 还有品牌顾问以及 blogger 的 Nicole 黄妮可，还有拥有博士学位，在 consulting firm 担任首席科学家以及职涯顾问以及 blogger 的 Catherine。那我们欢迎这两位来进行他们简短的自我介绍。那我们先从 Catherine 开始。
Hello， 大家好，谢谢芝玲的介绍。我是 Catherine， 跟这里大部分的人一样，我其实是从台湾移民来美国，所以其实这里大部分的人都已经有 transition 的经验，然后你们其实比你们自己想象的还要更 resilient。那我的人生当中还有另外2个转折的过程。第一个呢是当妈妈，那真的是人生的大改变。那第二个是在职涯上面，从本来是研究水母的科学家，然后当 data scientist， 然后现在在 consulting firm 做海洋能源的部分，同时也自己创业。那很高兴能够借由今天的机会分享我的故事，希望能够鼓励到大家，你其实想象的比自己想象的还要更 resilient， 然后可以做到比自己想象的更多的事情。谢谢。
谢谢 Catherine 的介绍。那我们欢迎 Nicole 来进行一下自己介绍。
很开心今天有这个机会来这边跟大家分享。我现在是一个写作者，然后也是品牌经营顾问和自媒体创业者。那我也是 podcast 节目 Nicker 这样说的主持人，和天下杂志换日线的专栏作者。那其实在我的大部分的 career 职涯当中，我都是在corporate 上班，在我的前十几年的职业生涯。但是直到去年我离开了 corporate， 然后自己出来做我的微型创业。对，所以我现在就是我去年就成立了妮可学院。那这个学院呢是教大家教内容创作者怎么样透过经营个人品牌，然后可以把他的副业发展成事业，拿回生活和工作的自主权。因为我自己对我来说，这是我人生很大的一个 transition。我在大概4-5年前开始就是经营自媒体还有个人品牌，然后就是实现了我自己就是有机会走向不打卡然后财务独立的人生的新篇章。所以我也同样希望可以透过我的协助帮助更多有这样梦想的人可以实现他们的梦想。对，所以我人生的 transition 最大的 transition 呢，就是说从corporate 然后成为一个独立创业者。那我目前也还在适应这样子的节奏。对，所以今天就是说，如果大家有这样子的兴趣，希望可以做这样职涯的转换，我觉得我也可以分享一下这方面的心得。
谢谢两位的自我介绍，我已经开始很期待你们的分享。 那一开始想要先从现在整个矽谷大环境，还有整个科技业的大环境来切入，就是现在大家可能都知道，现在裁员潮的情况下，对于很多的人的就是产生的困难，或者找工作，或者是在台湾有一些公司开始有一些裁员的动作。那在面对这些转折，想要邀请你们分享一下，你们之前在去转折不同的职业跟找到不同的机会的时候，你们有没有一些见解能够分享给在这些裁员潮困境下的人？有没有什么建议能够面对这些转折？那我们可以先从Nicole 开始。
好，我觉得其实这也现在就是有点人心惶惶哈，大家都在猜下一个是哪一间公司要裁员。那我自己就是去年其实在 corporate 的时候，那个时候就有嗅到一丝这样子的气息。那后来很幸运是自己先离职了，不然我可能也是第一批被裁掉的人。对，那我觉得其实这是一个最好的时代，是一个最坏的时代啊。就是当有遇到挑战的时代的时候，其实也是有机会可以重新崛起的一个时代。所以我觉得职场专业人士其实可以趁这个机会重新的去审视自己的工作技能，然后想想看，盘点一下你自己的一些技能还有专长，想一想哪一些是你擅长的，然后哪一些是你不擅长，然后可以透过学习来增进的。那你也可以去了解，就是说你的公司的组织他们目前要发展的方向是哪一个面向。如果你擅长的领域刚好是你公司现阶段需要的技能，那么相对来说你可能就是比较安全，就是不用担心。那如果就是你现在的领域是你很擅长，但是公司的发展目前可能比较不需要，那你可能要做好随时 stand by 的一个这样子的心理准备。好，我觉得这是第一个事情。然后再来就是呢，要持续的投资自己我觉得这个是持续的学习精进自己，这个是不论在什么时候都很重要，但尤其是在现在大环境比较不好的情况之下因为雇主他其实更倾向 hire 去性价比高的员工，就 CP 值比较高的员工所以我们如何把自己打造的更具有竞争力，我觉得也是关键所在。所以呢，可以透过自学还有线上课程进行技能的升级，现在都有很多这样子的资源。很多人离开了学校之后，他就一辈子可能就没有再学习了，我觉得这很可惜。但是现在我觉得反而透过这种时机，我们可以就是说去沉潜，然后装备好自己，把自己打造的更具为自己装备更强而有力的武器因为我们虽然没有办法改变这个大环境，但是呢我们可以跟紧时代然后精进自己，然后做一些充电，相信就可能可以应对未来可能会面对的挑战。对，那再来就是说，如果你不幸被裁员的话就是我觉得这个情绪的调节非常的重要。就是这个时候呢，不要自怨自艾，或者是说怀疑自己，因为这个时候的裁员大部分都是因为是不景气，公司需要cost down， 所以就是你不要去怀疑自己，而是要去抓紧时间去update 你自己的履历，还有 LinkedIn 的 profile。那我觉得 LinkedIn 的 profile 其实是在任何时间都要把它维持一个 maintain 在一个很好的就是 presence 这样子。那然后这个时候也要快速去梳理自己之前的工作经验，然后积极行动做 networking， 然后才是一个最好的应对方式。大概是这样子。
谢谢你的非常非常有用的干货分享。那我们好奇 Catherine 对于怎么教大家应对这个裁员的心态，或者是在这个大环境下要怎么 prepare 好这些 challenge， 有没有一些可以分享给观众？
我知道现在很多新闻都在播矽谷这家大公司裁员，那一家大公司又裁员，大家都在比谁裁员的比较多。那被裁的一定会心里很伤心，就算没有被裁的也会觉得压力很大，下一个会不会就是我？那我想跟大家分享一个小故事，就是我还在念博士班的时候，后期写论文生不出来的时候，其实是压力非常大的。有当过研究生的可能都知道，在最后面在写论文的时候写不出来，然后进度不如预期，看其他人都毕业了，自己都没有毕业，然后就陷入那种很钻牛角尖的状态。我记得有一天我看到一个同学，其实是我的学妹， 他毕业要口试的通告，我就突然之间大崩溃，就觉得为什么他都毕业了，我都还没有。那个谁谁谁没有当妈妈，一天可以写12个小时，那个谁谁谁没有工作，他一天也可以写12个小时，为什么我一天2小时都写不出来？我这样子怎么可能可以毕业？我辜负父母的期待，辜负老师的期待，然后很早就想，就整个大崩溃着。那后来当天我在一个匿名的部落格上面写了就是自己悲伤的心情，然后就有一些人给我安慰。当下我觉得其实就好很多，但是我觉得有一个地方差别更大的是，隔一天早上我睡醒来的时候，我小孩也醒了，然后我去抱他，然后要喂他喝奶，那个时候他还很小，然后他喝奶的时候，他的脸看着我的那个表情就是妈妈，你是我世界的一切，然后他的表情就是我好爱好爱你。然后我当下的感觉就是其实我的小孩不在乎有没有博士学位，然后假设我真的最后没有办法拿到这个学位，我还是他的妈妈，然后我还是爸爸妈妈的女儿，我还是我先生的太太。我虽然假设我失去掉这个标签，比方说我可能假设说被裁员，或许失去掉一个某某公司员工的标签，那个感觉是会很痛苦的，因为你就好像多掉一个东西，但是其实还拥有很多。那当下我学习到的是退后一步看到我挫折以外的世界其实还很大，我可能失去掉这个东西我突破不了，但是其实我还有好多，然后我的本质是不变的，有没有这个博士学位我都是 Catherine。 那或许有人被受到裁员，如果今天不是这个裁员，也或许以后还会有其他的挫折，因为大部分的人一辈子不是一帆风顺的，可能有时候会有不如意的地方。那我希望借由这个故事鼓励大家说，看到自己不变的本质，那拥有这个本质，你都随时还可以东山再起。
谢谢你们2位的分享，我觉得对，就是很重要，可以在这些困境中，还是可以审视自己到底是什么样的人，然后自己有什么样的优点，要怎么样去强化，然后在这个跌倒之后要怎么站起来，继续增进自己或调试自己的心态。我觉得
对不起，我突然想到，我可以再补充一下吗？
可以。
对，我知道在场的大部分的观众可能都是在矽谷，所以会觉得好像矽谷的新闻都是全世界的新闻，然后矽谷大裁员就表示全世界都没有工作。那我因为身处在华府，所以我感受到的氛围其实是不一样的，就没有那么多裁员的压力，然后因为中美竞争的关系，还有气候变迁的关系，不管是国防数据还有环境方面相关的工作，其实都非常的多，而且其实是一直在增加，一直在挖人。所以或许矽谷这边的工作现在暂时是情况比较不好，但是不代表其他的产业全部都不好。那一样的技术，像刚刚Nicole说的，也很有可能可以应用在其他地方。那我鼓励大家看到更大的世界，然后知道你自己的本质没有变，其实还是可以有很多的应用。
很有趣，就是要跳脱自己现在站的位置，要看到自己有什么优点，也要去看除了你现在工作的地方还有什么其他机会可以去 explore。 我觉得是还蛮有帮助的一个建议。那关于这个找到自己的优势，还有你们自己过去经验，因为也有不同的在职涯上的转折点，我好奇你们当初是怎么找到自己的专长跟优点？是透过一些兴趣方式，还是怎么样的测试出来你对这件事情是有专长的，然后你想要用这个专长来进去深入变成你的职涯？就是好奇你们当时的一个心境和如何去找到自己优点。
我先回答吗？
好，
我先回答好。那也是一样分享，也其实是回应上一个问题，其实是一样的，是看到自己的本质。微观来看好像是转，巨观来看其实都是做自己。那可能以前有看不到我的文章的朋友都会知道说，我博士班念到一半的时候，有一阵子就意识到说， 学术可能不是我真的想要走的，可是不走学术我不知道要干嘛，那一阵子的时候就很迷茫。那时候其实做了一个自我分析，回头看，如果把标签拿掉，我到底喜欢做什么事情，我到底擅长做什么事情，然后我就发现我是一个很喜欢讲话的人。我小的时候就上台讲故事，然后就被老师选为讲故事的代表，那国小的时候就进入演说校队，高中的时候就当辩论社社长，然后大学的时候呢，只要有讲话的机会，我常常都是小组被推出去上台报告的人。那别人很多人讲话会觉得说很有压力，我上台就觉得讲话真的是太喜欢了，我宁可讲话也不想要写东西。我发现我很喜欢讲话，然后就想说我有没有可能可以把我喜欢讲话这一件事情当作是一个职涯发展，有没有什么工作很需要讲话，然后又如果可以结合我本来的科学训练，那要更好。那个时候就看到了可能可以走 policy 这个部分。刚开始的时候其实也是很害怕，因为毕竟也是一个外国人，那我要用第二语言，我不太确定自己是不是做得到。但是当下已经觉得我就放手一搏吧，试试看。那后来也好险是第一次试的结果还不错，所以之后也获得更多的勇气。那其实我之后的转职，乍看之下好像都是标签上的转换，比方说从研究水母学家变成数据学家，然后变成什么 consultant， 然后变成创业。可是在我自己巨观来看的话，其实都没有太大的转变。比方说当科学家是很需要分析嘛，那这个分析的能力重新包装一下就变成 data scientist 啦。那科学家的训练就是要看到问题在哪里，然后是要解决问题，那这一个能力就可以拿去当 consultant 啊。那科学的训练有一部分也是创造知识，然后解决问题。那一样的能力，创造知识，解决问题，我可以解决别人的问题，那这就是一个 business。所以又回到跟上题一样的东西，就是不要只看到很微观的标签，什么样的公司或者是什么样的学历，而是看到自己的本质。那这个本质其实有很多种的应用，你现在的职业或现在的学历只是其中一种应用，但不是唯一一种。
好，谢谢 Catherine 的分享。那我的方法就是我可能分享一些比较实际的步骤吧，对，跟 Catherine 比较不一样的面向。我自己就是出来创业创那个online education， 投入 online education 这个领域的时候，那时候我就知道说我要做线上课程。但是线上课程的很广嘛，主题非常的广泛，到底要选什么主题呢？那个时候一开始我也是非常的头痛，对，就是也不知道要做什么。然后后来呢，我就先去盘点我自己的专长跟兴趣，我就拿一张白纸把这几个问题写下来，就是我最擅长什么还有我的专业是什么，以及我的兴趣是什么，还有就是如果不考虑其他的条件，我最想要做什么事情然后我就先把这些都写下来之后呢，然后我就narrow down 了几个项目，比如说我可以教大家怎么样做 podcast，然后我可以教大家怎么经营个人品牌，然后我可以教大家怎么样写书跟出书，有这三个面向，有这三个主题。但是呢，这三个主题不能是我自己想出来的嘛，我还要知道说这个市场它需要的是什么，不能说我自己觉得很棒我就推出来，但是实际上根本市场没有这个需求，那你就是白忙一场。对，所以我那个时候就是我做了一件事情，我觉得现在想起来我觉得是还蛮聪明的。我就是去IG Instagram， 现在大家很多人都有 Instagram 嘛，那你没有 Instagram 也没有关系，你就是用其他的工具。那我那时候是用 Instagram 然后的 Stories 就是限时动态，然后我就问大家说，如果我想要开线上课程，有这三个主题，就刚刚讲的三个主题，那你最有兴趣从我身上学哪一个领域，我就直接去问我的潜在受众，问我的粉丝，然后结果就透过他们的投票就选出来说是个人品牌。那所以呢我就决定了，所以呢这个就是一个从自己的兴趣跟专长，还有这个市场需要什么，这三个面向，你抓出这三个面向的一个交集点，这个就会是你的，我觉得就是每个人的最小可行市场啦，我这样子称。对，就是你可以先从这个最小可行市场开始去发挥展开，然后之后呢再开始做 优化跟调整。
谢谢两位的分享，我觉得你们的建议都很 consistent， 就是很像 Catherine 提到，要知道自己的优势在哪里，然后你找到这个优势，你就可以把这些 skills transfer 到别的职位，虽然看起来差很多，但是其实都是用同样的本质跟专长去弄。然后 Nicole 也是提到，就是一些很有用的方式去找到自己的专长、兴趣，还有市场需要什么，去让我们观众可以有一个很实际的方法去找到自己可能往的方向。那我想切回到我们这个主题的这个 resilience， 像你们有提到你们过去有很多的转换，不管是转职涯，或者是变成当妈妈。那我好奇，想先问一下 Catherine， 像你在自己当妈妈以及在不同的转职经验中，如何去调整一下心态，然后在逆境下怎么展现你的韧性？韧性对于你来说是什么？有没有什么建议可以给观众？
我觉得当妈妈对我最大的学习是加法心态。我可以跟大家分享一个小故事。有一天我早上起来要准备做早餐的时候，我要帮我儿子蒸馒头，结果那个电锅一打开，里面就是红红的很多胶质，然后又烧焦，然后我当下其实以为是我儿子在做实验，因为他其实看我煮菜，他有时候就会在旁边煮一些很奇怪的黑暗料理。然后我当下看到那个锅子被摧残成这样子，虽然很生气，但是因为我以为是我儿子煮的，我想说他在发展他的厨艺兴趣，我不要这个不要压制他，我要好好跟他讲，下次不要这样子弄电锅。然后但是后来我就叫我儿子来说你来，然后我妈妈跟你说这个电锅以后要怎么讲。我讲到一半他就说这不是我煮的，是爸爸煮的。当我听到是我先生煮的时候，马上就爆气，就是居然把我的电锅弄成这个样子。然后我就发现同样一件事情，就是电锅被摧残，我有双重标准。如果是我儿子煮的，我想到就是哇，他原来本来不会煮菜，他现在想要试着煮菜，只是犯了一点小错误，没有关系。但是如果发现是我先生煮的，那个标准就是你为什么把我的电锅弄成这个样子？我发现在很多事情上面，我对他们两个都是双重标准。因为小孩子刚生出来的时候是什么都不会，然后我对他的期待就只有健健康康就好。那他除了健健康康以外，多做了什么事情？什么多走一步多讲一句话从讲10个字变讲20个字，我都觉得好厉害。然后我先生他如果讲错一句话，就不用讲错一句话，讲错一个字，我就爆气了，我太生气了，离婚，对不对？就差距就很大。那我就发现说，这个同样一件事情，不同的 perspectives 有很大的就会有很大不一样的感觉。那我发现我看我自己的时候，也会有这样子的差异。那有的时候有一些事件发生或不如意的时候，以前我比较会钻牛角尖，就会觉得说我这里做的不够好，那你做的不如别人。那现在我比较学会换一个角度思考，我其实蛮常鼓励来找我，就是感觉人生卡关，然后来询问我的意见的时候，我就说我都会鼓励他们说，你现在感觉到的卡关或者是碰到一些障碍，其实都是暂时的。你如果往回看5年前的自己，10年前的自己，你其实已经走了好远，你可能比自己5年前10年前还要想象的都走得更远了。那现在的这个当下真的只是一个很小的 moment， 会度过的。所以我也是想要用这样的故事鼓励大家，这个事件是固定在那里，但是你的 perspectives 可以不一样。
谢谢 Catherine 的分享。那想请教 Nicole， 因为像在我们在 pre-discuss 的时候，你有提到说自己在过去的备孕经验遇到一些挫折，然后还有在你的转职上有一些心得。那不知道你可不可以分享一些在这些情况你怎么展现你的逆境，然后展现你的韧性，然后有没有什么观众可以参考的？你可以unmute一下。
在我就是求子的路上呢，因为 不是很顺利。我跟我先生就是一开始都是自然尝试嘛，但试了2-3年都没有任何的消息，所以后来我就去不孕科做检查。那我那个时候去做检查是说完全没有查出来有任何的问题啊。那后来我也做了很多 research， 其实很多女生都是这样子，是一个不知道的原因，但是她就是没有办法受孕。那我自己就是这样子的 case， 对，所以后来我就是决定说，那我就是做试管婴儿，因为这个是根据科学的报告，这个是成功几率最高的。好，但是我一共就是在3年之内做了2次的试管婴儿，好，那2次都失败了。但是我现在想起来，我完全没有后悔，就是当初的选择。如果现在你问我说你要不要再做一次试管婴儿，然后你已经知道你会失败了，我还是愿意走这样子的一条路，因为这个旅程它改变了我的人生观。那我想要先说，我不知道现在就是大家也许有些人也正在备孕，或是你也是要走上做试管婴儿，或者是人工受孕的旅程。那就是这个是对于身心都是一种很大的折磨，因为你要吃排卵药，然后打排卵针，然后接着是取卵，然后还有就是胚胎植入之后还得继续打针，然后要补充黄体素，最后就是等待开奖验孕。然后在美国这边的话呢，排卵针是得每天连续打将近2个礼拜。然后第一次打完之后呢，我的卵子的数量因为不够，所以还需要打第2回合，因为他们需要取到足够的卵，然后去跟精子做这个胚胎的就是做这个结合对，所以我又再打了第2次，然后最后肚皮上都是充满了淤青，然后还有就是头晕想吐，然后还有焦躁，就很焦躁，然后比较容易生气，还有下腹部非常的肿胀，对，就是整个人的荷尔蒙好像都乱掉了。那打针它是有时效性的，所以一定要在就是某个时间点打，这样子不能超过一定的时间，所以我都得趁上班的空档偷偷跑进厕所里面打针。对，但是这些我觉得都还不是做试管婴儿最辛苦的，我觉得最痛苦的其实是心理层面，因为当你的胚胎植入之后呢，你就会开始有一个hope， 你就会想东想西，会去想就是到底会不会中这一次，然后就是会有那种得失心啦。我觉得就算你都知道要放轻松，但是还是很难所以这是第一个关卡。然后第2个就是说放榜之后，因为我2次放榜之后都是失败嘛，那我现在想起来那个时候真的是非常的煎熬，因为那种失败的感觉，你是觉得说好像你是看不到尽头的感觉，就这件事情不是你努力就会成功，好像它不是说你这第一次你在人生当中觉得说这个有一个东西是你没有办法去掌控的。那对我来讲，我以前都是一直是一个完美主义者，就连怀孕这件事情我也要认为说我要觉得说我要准备好，真的要一个 perfect timing 我才怀孕，所以为什么我会拖到那么晚？对，然后后来当我知道其实 no perfect timing 的时候，但我已经可能错过了那个最好的怀孕的时光，所以后来就走上了这个试管婴儿的之路。但是当我自己就是这2次都失败之后，我就渐渐的因为真的很绝望，然后觉得说好像怎么样努力都看不到尽头，也不知道要不要再试一次因为就是那个时候的身体状况已经变得很糟了。所以那一直以来我都是一位写作者，所以我在最痛苦的时候呢，我就选择用书写记录我这段做试管婴儿的日子，就是所有的心路历程我都把它记录下来。那在文字当中我又重新找回力量，而且认知到就是生命当中不是每件事情都能够如你所愿，所以我就开始学会去放手，去顺流而下，去顺着就是这个你生活的这个节奏，生活要带你去哪你可以照着它走，不用一直去反抗，或者是说去要抓回这个掌控权这样子，然后用平常心看待。就我原本觉得不孕这件事情是很难启齿的，我没有跟身边任何一个朋友讲。那后来呢，反而是在我朋友的鼓励之下，我就把这一段不孕求子的经验透过我的 podcast 的节目分享出去。因为他们跟我讲说，当你愿意把你的这种痛苦的事情你愿意分享出去的时候，其实对你自己是一种疗愈，所以我很想要知道这是一种什么样的疗愈的旅程，所以我选择了 做这样的事情。后来呢，我发现我讲出来之后呢，我获得很多女性听众朋友的他们就写信跟我说，他们现在也在做试管婴儿，也在准备做试管婴儿。那他们觉得我的分享让他们感觉到他们自己不是孤独的，他们有力量可以面对接下来的挑战。对，所以我觉得为什么我不后悔再走一次这段旅程，因为我回头看这段时光，我觉得它其实是我人生的一个礼物，因为它让我意识到说，人生当中不是每件事情你努力就一定会有结果，但是呢，你不努力是一定没有结果的。然后我也意识到，就是说，这是上天借由这个苦难，让我成为别人的祝福，就是成为我听众的一个祝福。而且也因为这件事情，我的人生观，比如说原本是完美主义者，或者是说原本想要控制一切的这样子的人生观，我觉得就是整个翻转了。然后这段历程也成为我后来创作上面的养分，所以我就很感谢这样子的经验。所以这段历程，我希望可以分享给如果你现在有在经营，有在准备要走上这个备孕的历程。或者是说你人生当中你很想要追逐一个事情，但是你一直觉得你没有办法确定你能不能掌控，我觉得也许我的人生故事可以给你一些鼓励。
谢谢你们的分享，就是也谢谢你们愿意带到自己的生活故事以及生命故事比较脆弱的部分，让这个学习能够带给我们观众，继续让他们有支持跟成长。那你们也提到就是你们都有各自不同的韧性的应对方法，像 Catherine 是用加法的方式去从不同角度看事情，那 Nicole 是从如果我们遇到困难，我们可以顺流而下，不要太执着于某一个点，然后去掌握我们能够学习的，然后可能可以改变人生观的部分。那我在这边先跟各位观众预告一下，就是最后我们会留几分钟的时间是 Q&A 的时间，那我们会开放观众提问，那也欢迎大家如果问题的话可以留在我们的 Q&A 部分。好，然后最后一个就是我们这边moderator 有的问题是想要切回到你们有一个共通点是两位都是顾问，那像 Nicole 是品牌顾问， Catherine 是职业顾问，那我好奇你们在这个顾问过程中有没有对于一些女性朋友的观察，以及有一些建议可以给在座的女性朋友？那我们可以先从Nicole 开始分享。
好，我觉得女生其实包括我自己也是，就是说你刚刚有讲到以前的我是完美主义者，就是说我认为说所有事情都要我规划的很好 plan 的很好，然后我才开始去执行，开始展开第一步。好，但是后来经历这个不孕了之后，我发现很多事情不是说你可以它会照你的计划走的，所以我后来我就慢慢变成是属于那种且战且走的一种态度，就是边走边做边学。对，那我后来我就常常会在想说，很多我辅导的很多学员他们就跟我说，他们很想要经营个人品牌或自媒体，但是他一直没有办法开始展开第一步，因为他觉得他要完全准备好。但是我常常就觉得说，到底什么时候是准备好？因为很多人我们常常从小就会听到有句话，就是机会是留给准备好的人。但是其实你自己去想一下，你经历过的事情，你真的是都等你全部准备好之后你才出手吗？其实我觉得机会是留给还没有准备好的人，我都会这样子去鼓励我的学员。为什么？那以我自己过去的职涯历程，一开始我是念文科的，但是我随着我先生的工作搬来矽谷，然后矽谷都是以理科为主的嘛，科技导向为主的职涯，那个时候就很难找工作。但是我也没有说就是说先去考一个什么data science 的证照才去找工作，我就是去在我那个时候我的能力范围之内，我去找可以适切的工作。最后我找到一个工作，它是需要有这个软体测试的经验，还有翻译的经验。但是因为我有中文的优势，所以我拿到了这个工作。但其实我并没有任何软体测试的经验，但是我就是 就是先去迈出了这一步，然后得到这个职业之后，得到这个job opening 之后呢，我再开始去学软体测试。还有就是说我后来投入这个个人品牌顾问事业，就像刚刚讲的，我也不知道说我要做什么主题，但是我就先去做市场调查，在这个过程当中去学习，然后去做市场调查来不断的调整的优化。那所以我认为说永远不会有完全准备好的这一天，所以你不用说很厉害才开始行动，而是说你要一直行动，一直去实践，才有可能变得很厉害。那只要你开始去行动的话，就算只是一小步，我觉得都会为你带来很大的动能哦。因为所以我觉得就是行动比完美的计划还要重要。
非常谢谢Nicole的分享。我觉得完美主义真的是很多女生的罩门，然后我觉得当妈妈其实也治好了我不少完美主义，因为小孩不是我能够控制的。很多时候我记得我曾经讲过一个例子，就是小孩还没有生出来的时候，心里有很多的想法，就想说哇，我要给他上什么样的幼稚园，然后给他什么样的教育跟启发，然后以后要变成什么样的人。然后结果有一次他上幼稚园的时候，他很有自己的意见，他就坚持他袜子要穿不成对的。然后他说你袜子为什么不要穿一双？他就说我觉得这样很好看啊。然后我当他最后一个感触说哇，我连他袜子想要穿什么样子都没有办法管，更不用提说我想要把它变成什么样。那当然还有很多就是时间上跟体力上的安排，其实是跟还没有当妈妈之前那种什么事情都可以掌握在手里面是很不一样的。所以我觉得在完美主义上的确有很大很大的学习。然后我也很同意Nicole刚刚讲的，机会不是给准备好的人，我觉得机会是给敢要的人。然后不是要等很强了才可以行动，而是一边行动才会变强。那另外我也想要鼓励，就是有一个研究，我记得以前看过一个研究指出男生跟女生看待事情的 perspective 很不一样。很多男生呢会把成功归因为自己，就是自己很厉害，然后失败归因为外在原因，就是大环境不好。女生很多就会相反，就是如果她成功的时候呢，就会说是我运气好。那她失败的时候呢，就会归因自己，说是我自己做的很不好。那我觉得我们也不用说非常的自傲，就是每一件事情都说就是我最厉害，但是我们可以稍微综合一下因为我在很多来找我职涯咨询的女生上面看到一样的事情，就是他们对自己的标准非常的高，然后是用减法心态在看待自己，如果有犯错的话就很苛责自己。那如果有些什么成就，其实大部分人都已经走到什么，就像我一开始跟大家说的，大家最起码都已经走过从台湾来美国这个 transition， 那这个其实并不是一件很简单的事情，你已经做到一件很不简单的事情。那我会鼓励大家，我们可以综合一下这个男女的 perspective， 就是成功了之后我运气很好，但是我也很棒很努力。失败的时候正常人生就是有些不如意的地方，有时候不顺自己。那像Nicole更之前讲的，的确有些东西并不是完全靠我们努力就一定会做得到，因为这个世界其实是一个很大的系统，我们只是这个大系统里面很小的一部分，的确真的有我们不能掌握的地方，也没有关系。
谢谢两位的分享。那因为时间关系，我们赶快进入到我们的 Q&A session。我们有一个 Adriana 这位听众想要请问，在美国的外国女性要怎么在企业文化里面生存？有什么能够突出的方法？想要请问两位。
我觉得文化差异上，然后可能也有一点点性别差异的关系。女生就是移民在美国的企业，可能稍微倾向，我看到比较多的是稍微倾向比较保守一点，就是自己的功劳不敢居，然后如果做什么事情不一定敢邀功，比较被动。然后我会鼓励大家勇敢争取， 我常常都跟别人分享说，大概要自亏，就是要自夸到觉得自己有一点点不舒服的程度，那差不多就是外国人觉得 OK 或是 common average 的程度这样子。但是我觉得也不是完全没有优势。第一个，我们知道不同的，我觉得身为移民本身就有一个看不同视角、看事情可以有不同视角这一个多元的 perspective 的能力。那我觉得像现在这一个越来越多元，然后在 transition 当中，你具有不同的角度看事情的能力，其实是一个优势。那语言只是其中一种展现，那它不一定只是语言而已。那再来就是我觉得很多女性在或许是成长的过程，也可能就是性别优势 maybe。我觉得的确是比很多男性的同事更有韧性。我们在很多大环境的变动当中，常常是可以活下来的那一个。所以也鼓励大家不用自怨自艾。或许我们有需要加强的地方，但是其实我们也有我们的优势。我在 corporate 当中，我有觉得女性有很明显的比较能够统整大家不同的意见，然后比较能够 build consensus。我觉得这一个在领导其实是有非常非常大的优势，就不是我很多男生就比较像会变成很专业，然后就变工具人。我觉得女生很多很专业，但是不会变工具人，还其实比男性更有发展 leadership 的能力跟机会。希望大家不要小看自己。
好，谢谢 Catherine 的分享。那因为时间关系，我们 panel 的时间到这边，然后简单做一个 recap， 就是我们今天讲到一开始要如何教我们观众要在这个大环境下，矽谷这个比较艰难的环境下，如何调整心态，然后如何找到自己的优点。然后我们也提到一些生活上有一些比较脆弱的跟比较棘手的 moment， 我们要怎么样调整自己的心态，用加法心态，用让顺水，然后减少我们的完美主义的这个心态去继续生活，还有在我们工作上继续努力下去。然后也有提到很多有用的建议给我们的观众分享。那今天的这个 panel 会就到这里，然后我们接下来会有一个 mingling 的breakout room， 然后我们的主办方会提供一个 share deck， 我们会 share screen， 然后让大家知道有一个 QR code 可以加入那个 breakout room。那我就把这个主控权还给我们的Hsiang-He。
Oh, thank you. Yes, we have the great panel today. So I hope that you guys there just learned a lot and also enjoy the time we have. And so first, let me just thank Catherine and Nicole again. And here you can see they have their fan page, the Facebook page, and just feel free to connect with them. And also don't forget to connect our NATEA's Facebook fan page. So next is we like to promote our next event. The Hsiang-He, are you here?
Yes, hello. Hello everyone, this is Hsiang-He. I am NATEA's board this year. And as we mentioned in the previous panel, that you can see it's kind of economic downtime, and it has been the difficult times for a lot of us. And within the NATEA's network and our personal network, we know a lot of people got impacted from the layoffs, from their job security are in jeopardy. So that's why we want to initiate this referral and networking program that we want to match the people they are still working in the company they are actively hiring with the people got impacted and out of job and they might be unemployed right now. And to launch this, and we build a small platform that the people who need the internal referral or just want to know what's the job market like in a current status, they can find the right match to the one. So we know that a lot of companies, like big company, FAANG company, they are not hiring anymore. However, just in our network, we know a lot of companies are still hiring, like Applied Materials, Samsung, Cisco, and Autodesk. We have the internal referral within our network. So if you are looking for a job right now, and welcome to scan this code on the right-hand side, and for the NATEA job seeker, and you can submit your profile. And if your company is actually hiring in North America, and you know they might be opening for maybe like a visa status sponsorship, or they're welcoming the international talents, you can scan the code on the left-hand side to help each other in the Taiwanese community or even broader community. So that's all for this. And after we collect enough feedback, we will send out the information. For a job seeker, you will receive a company list, and you can go ahead to find a job board, find a position, and we will be the middle person to help you connect to the right referral or right people to help you there. So this is our job seeking initiative, and welcome to scan the code to know more. And I will hand back to Hsiang-He to get a wrap up of our event.
Thank you, Yan-Kai. Yes. So next, we would like to acknowledge all our members there from NATEA, and we have the really successful evening today. And so we thank our presidents there, Jianming and Alice, Vicky, Yan-Kai, Tiffany, Mark, Ken, Aris, Sammy, Bruce, Jeff, and a lot of people that actually maybe not listed on the down here. And but I really appreciate. Yeah, so without you, we cannot make this event happen. And especially, I would like to thank our three modelists. And they helped me to organize the events, and they did a great job. I think you are all agree with that. And so the next is our breakout room. So please just scan the QR code. And also if you have like to have a Zoom, that's a Zoom meeting ID, and we need a code to access the meeting room. So we will, see you later, and welcome to engage and have the more conversation going on. And thank you so much.